Hello, my name is Jamie White, and welcome to another educational video. For today's topic, we will be discussing the business strategy sustainability. Welcome back. Once again, my name is Jamie White, and today I will be taking you through the business strategy of sustainability. Now, if you're familiar with our educational series, you know that we have talked about various topics outside of sustainability, but other things that include supplier diversity, social procurement. So essentially business strategies and business action plans that connect organizations to small and diverse suppliers, to community oriented organizations, etc. If you support the things that we're doing and you like the things that we're doing, please make sure to check out suppliertonews.com. From there, you can go ahead and sign up for our membership. It's only 99 cents the first month, and then after that, $5.99. We really appreciate anyone who takes the time out. And once again, if you really appreciate what we're doing and want to support us, this is most definitely the way. If you are unable to afford 99 cents for the first month, please, when you see these videos, take the time to like, subscribe, share the video, and also leave a comment, letting us know kind of what we're doing and if you have any feedback for us. So, with that introduction complete, let's go ahead and let's talk about what is sustainability. So, as we begin, the one thing that we need to understand is what sustainability is, kind of what the definition is, and where it sits. So as you can see with the first point, what is sustainability? Just going to read this real quick. Sustainability focuses on meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. So basically what that means is when you're dealing with sustainability for a company, this generally concerns the entire organization, right? So it does deal with procurement, but it'll also do with things such as sales and things of that nature. Now, when you're talking about, making sure that whatever you're doing currently, so whether that's, you're purchasing from a supplier that, is environmentally friendly, has a social impact or good that they're doing with, you're making sure that whatever you're doing for the current setting, it doesn't negatively impact the future generations 30, 40, 50 plus years from there. So once again, environment, just because that's just a really easy one to take a look at when you're dealing with things such as like, are you negatively impacting the water around you, right? While you may be making a profit, if it is negatively impacting the water, then that's not a sustainable business model, because as we know, 10 years from now, if you're poisoning the water, you're going to be poisoning your consumers, which obviously is not a good thing. So as you can see in bold, sustainability is composed of three pillars, right? So how do you, and understanding how people make the determination of, what is a sustainable model or what encompasses sustainability, the three pillars that make up that are economic, environment, and social, right? And we're going to get into how, what each means. But as you can see, they're also known as profits, planet, and people, right? So making sure that these are all aligned, making sure that you're making money while also positively impacting the planet as well as the people around you. Now, just a quick history. Where did it come from? It actually came from during around the Nixon era, where things were established for environmental regulations in the 1970s. Now, for those who have been following our educational series before, this may not be the first time that you've heard about programs being started in the Richard Nixon era. And that's true because it also pertains to supply diversity. So that's actually started around the same time as sustainability. So when we're taking a look back at when did all of these types of programs begin and these types of regulations kind of show their head the first time, it actually came around during the Richard Nixon era, which is pretty interesting. Let's just be honest here. I know that the Richard Nixon administration doesn't get a lot of positive push or information about it because of obviously the Watergate scandal. But when you're dealing with these types of programs, in fact, this is where it started. Now, the three pillars of corporate sustainability. So we mentioned environment, economic, and then social. So here we're just going to kind of go through what each of these means. Now, environment is pretty easy to understand. Anything that involves reducing the negative impact of the environment around you, the planet, essentially. So the second point is something that we really need to take a look at, which is how it actually plays out, right? So once again, the second point under environmental, this can lead to a positive financial impact as lessening the amount of material used in packaging, for example, usually reduces the overall spending on these materials, right? So if you're dealing with packaging that may be harmful to the environment, maybe looking at something that's lower cost, not cheaper, but something that's lower cost and can handle your materials in a better fashion. And this has actually been happened in some of these industries where it actually lowered the cost because the packaging that they were using were much more expensive and also more harmful to the environment. So finding out different ways like this definitely can help, and we'll get into more examples as we go forward as well. Next up is social. So there's actually three parts within the social pillar that we can discuss. Is how is a business impacting their employees, their community, as well as the global people around them. So when you're looking at your basic employees, or not basic, but when you're looking at companies looking at their employees, as you can see, businesses refocus on retention and engagement strategies. So these things can include things such as better maternity and paternity leave, flexible scheduling, and learning about training and development opportunities. Right. So how are you educating your current employees, and as well as offering them things such as healthcare benefits? How is that helping them? Within community, obviously companies have ways to give back, so this can include like sponsorship, scholarships, things of that nature. Again, impacting the community around you, maybe to at worst, obviously helping the community and your future consumers, but also maybe even building up your future employee base. And then from a global perspective, how are you dealing with the global trends that are going on right now? So for example, are you doing business with a supplier that's buying from child labor, if you will, conflict minerals, so things of that nature? Do they have fair pay within their company that you're currently purchasing or doing business with? So things like that, how, again, creating that sustainable model for your business as well as the community around you. And then lastly, the economic piece. So obviously we're talking about profits here, but it also has another name that you can take a look at when you're dealing with the economic part of sustainability, and that is corporate governance, right? So that's really the piece here. When you're doing business with other companies as well as yourself, obviously taking a look at your company internally and making sure that the corporate pay structure is okay, as well as what are these, are there any illegal practices going on? Things like that. Again, corporate governance, ensuring that obviously internally you're doing the right thing, and then when you're doing business with other companies, they're also doing the right thing, right? You don't want to buy from, a company whose, board is made up of crooks, right? For obvious reasons. I don't think I need to go in depth on that one. Now, and taking a look at the three pillars that make up sustainability, what we also need to understand is, how do you incorporate this strategy into your, corporation, or organization, maybe a nonprofit, or a government, however you want to take a look at this. I actually took this, this kind of four steps from the Harvard Business School online. Actually, online should probably be capitalized, but there are 4 steps online with your business strategy within your mission. So kind of how to do that. So it's actually pretty, I would say, self-explanatory. The first piece would be assess the problem and define objectives, which is pretty normal. So taking those 3 pillars and understanding what the issues may be within your industry, because obviously every industry is different, what you're looking at when it comes to sustainability, and then define your objectives from that. Establish your mission. So make sure that whatever your sustainability mission is, it's connected with your corporate mission. Obviously, craft your strategy from that. And then lastly, what are the results? Making sure that the results are meeting the goals and strategy that that you input. Now, if you're looking for more in-depth a version of this, which it's a couple pages on Harvard Business School online, I will leave a link to that page so you can check it out. It's a really good article. Definitely check that out when you have the time. Now, talked about what sustainability is, the pillars, how to create that strategy. But we're doing all this. Let's first take a look at what are some of the benefits we can get from this. Now, I think the obvious benefits that we can all agree on are when you're making sure that the company or strategy that you're using is creating some type of sustainable outlook. I mean, that's a benefit in itself, right? You want to make sure that whatever you're doing today can last the next 10, 20 years. But there are also other benefits as well. So, as you can see, sustainability encourages businesses to frame decisions in terms of years and decades instead of the next quarter, right? And once again, kind of what I just mentioned previously, which is taking a look at the future, each and every day, making sure that whatever you're doing today can last you 10, 20 years is definitely a benefit in itself. And then lastly, another benefit, not the last benefit, but another benefit would be when large companies commit to sustainable, ideas and practices, then everyone around them has to kind of follow suit, right? From consumers to suppliers, because if you're creating a sustainable business, then the people who are buying from you are also creating a sustainable environment, and so are your suppliers because they have to meet those requirements. Now, the sustainable ideas and structures can come from a lot of different places within the market, right? Some of the ideas some of the things that I've given in terms of examples have been more corporate related, but those aren't the only types of market trends that create sustainability pushes. So the first piece obviously is corporations. The second piece can be the industry, so competitors, right? They may decide, hey, we're gonna do this another way, and you as a company have to kind of align yourself with that. An example of that would probably be something like along the lines of like the automotive industry, where we're seeing more of a push towards alternative fuels, even driverless vehicles, looking for ways to create a more sustainable environment. Investors, there is a thing called impact investing now, where people are taking a look at your board, the workforce diversity, your sustainable market when it comes to things like environment, if you're like an energy company, things like that. So we're seeing more things along those lines as well. Banks is another way. Funding, that kind of gets into the investor piece, but why am I funding you? Do you have a corporate structure that can last 10, 20 years? Suppliers can also push for that as well, right? When they're looking to do business with you, they're looking for different ways and innovative ways to solve different issues. And one of the things that they can also push is the whole, like, for example, like green initiatives that we see suppliers doing. Hey, instead of creating this type of packaging, I'm creating a more green-friendly packaging that's cheaper. Here you go, and corporations can purchase that. And then, not last piece, I keep saying last, but in addition to that, consumers as well. Maybe consumers, don't want to buy from companies that are poisoning water, for example. That's a pretty obvious one, but an example nonetheless, to kind of push companies towards a new way of selling and creating their products. And there's obviously more that I haven't mentioned here or haven't mentioned here today, but these are just some of the ideas. So, what are some examples of sustainable efforts or sustainability efforts? So I broke them down into two different pieces. The first one would be short term, and then the second one is long term. So in the short term, a company may go paperless or submit receipts to consumers through text or email. Obviously, this is to cut down on paper. We all know paper comes from trees. Deforestation is an issue. So the less paper that we're putting out there, the better for trees that help us breathe. A company may leave the electricity. Another example is a company may leave the electricity and heat on overnight while there are no employees. And obviously, this adds to cost. So ensuring that when the last employee leaves, they cut off the lights and turn off the heat can save on cost as well. So again, sustainable efforts. I think we can all agree these make sense and benefit the company as a whole, in particular, cutting expenses. Now, for the long term, a couple more examples. A factory that allows its waste to flow into a nearby body of water. We've kind of talked about that previously. Poison the water, not good. It may be a cheap solution today, but 10, 20 years from now, obviously that is going to completely destroy your consumer base, as well as kill people, which is not a good thing. And then you have other legal issues that you're gonna have to pay for 5, 10 years from along the line. So it's just better to take care of this and handle this today. That way you can create a sustainable business practice, over the next couple of decades. And the last piece that I wanted to talk about, which was very interesting, which is the example given by Stanford Social Innovation Review. Whirlpool improved appliance energy efficiency because it watched energy efficiency move from number 2 in consumer priorities in the 1980s to number 3, just behind cost and performance. Now, I think that's pretty interesting. Sustainable efforts, obviously the things that are being created today, we've talked about environment, social, economic, but also being aware that your consumer base is taking a look at this more and more, and the various types of sustainable efforts, whether that be employees, consumers, on a global aspect, community, environment. That may change over the next 10, 20 years. So creating sustainable practices and being ready for that change, again with the Whirlpool example, it moved from 12 to 3. So really understanding what your consumer base is, what they care about, and then creating practices around and creating products around those type of issues is a challenge that everyone needs to be aware of, and something that you need to make sure that you're compensating for as you're growing. And as you can see with Whirlpool, they definitely made that note and did it the right way. So just going to look at sustainability and its impact outside of business. So kind of what's going on, around the idea of sustainability, within education, and also, what's going on with sustainability within investing. But for the first piece, we're going to talk about the impact on education. So just a couple of notes that I found very interesting when I was researching this, which is 88% of business school students think that learning about social and environment issues in business is a priority, which is amazing because, 10, 20 years from now, 10, 20 years in the past, I can guarantee you this was not the case. So, the future leaders of these companies, almost 9 in 10 believe that, social and environmental issues are a business priority. In addition, 67% want to incorporate environmental sustainability into their future jobs. So again, almost 7 in 10 want to work for or create sustainability, or work for companies that have sustainability or incorporate that in businesses that may not have it. So once again, we're looking at the future leaders of these businesses, based on these studies, will be making this a priority. To meet this demand, the percentage of business schools that require students to take a course dedicated to business and society increased from 34% in 2001 to almost 80% in 2011. So this is something that, as you can see within education, it's already being taught in schools, and it's something that it's been taught in schools for almost a decade now, and it's only growing when it comes to businesses putting this in place. Okay. So in addition to impact on education, let's also take a look at impact on investing, which I thought was another thing that must be noted. As we know, businesses are, the number one way to stay in business is, you're making a profit, right? If you're spending too much money, you won't be in business for too long. While we're talking about sustainability and all these other practices, if you're not making money, you won't be in business. But it is also true when it comes to sustainability that if you're not making money the correct way, you won't be in business 10 years from now, right? In addition to that, what are, shareholders, what are average investors thinking of how you're making profit? Because if they're not going to support you, then it's going to be hard to continue your business, 10 years from now. Now, today, more than 90% of CEOs state that sustainability is important to their company's success. So that's essentially reflecting what, education's going or has gone over the past 20 years. Several investors today use environmental, Several investors today use environmental, social, and governance, so ESG metrics to analyze an organization's ethical impact and sustainability practices. So it's what's called impact investing. You may have heard this in probably like the past 5 years ish. This new type of impact investing where you're seeing a lot more investment corporations really pushing companies to increase diversity on their board or increase transparency when it talks to their reporting on different things like environmental impact and things like that. So this has been going on for a little while now, but as you can see, since it's been going on for a while, impacting sustainability and how it operates has grown. In addition, there have also been with the big push towards this whole passive investing, if it will, and you have organizations that are investing more in ETFs, which are I don't want to get too specific. Too in detail with it, but instead of you investing in one stock, you're investing in a group of stocks. What we're seeing is that groups of stocks are now also reflecting sustainability metrics, right? So, these are the top 50 companies when it comes to workplace diversity. These are the top 50 companies that have good women, a lot of women leaders in their company. These are top 50 companies that, prioritize the environment, just things like that, just throwing out, broad examples. But that's really what we're seeing when it comes to investing is more and more organizations that are offering these types of groups of companies that people can invest in, and the returns are solid so far. Now, we've been talking about the good when it comes to sustainability, but I do want to also note some of the disadvantages that can take place if you are looking to implement a sustainability process or mission. So as you can see, by basing decisions on longer timelines, some of the higher upfront investments in efficiency and renewable sources are easier to justify. But investors have to adjust their expectations for returns because of this, right? So let's say your company isn't or hasn't been doing things that have been making good strides towards sustainable efforts, right? If that's the case, that means that there will be an upfront cost and investment to switch your company to be able to do this so that you, once again, are running efficiently over the next 10 to 20 years. Because of that, again, it's going to be a higher upfront cost, which investors specifically need to be aware of that because profits may decrease over the next 3 to 5 years, but may also increase over the next 5 to 10 years because of that investment. So that is a bit of a disadvantage. That is something that you will have to, for some companies, notify your investors, and there may be something that they may be worried about because what if it doesn't work out, right? Any type of investment in a business strategy is going to be that type of questioning, but this is just one of those. Now, what does this mean for the future of sustainability? So I wanted to kind of note this. I actually found this from the Stanford Social Innovation Review. Once again, I have these links in the description as well as at the end of this presentation. But it was pretty interesting in terms of how they describe sustainability today versus what's going to be in the future. So today, it's referred to as enterprise integration at the University of Michigan's Herb Institute. Essentially, it's a model of business responding to market shifts to increase competitive positioning by integrating sustainability into pre-existing business considerations. So basically, there's an issue, you're running your business, and then an issue comes up, and then you adjust because of that, right? In the future, business sustainability will evolve into market transformation. A business model where instead of waiting for a market shift to create incentives for sustainable practices, companies will create those shifts to enable new forms of business sustainability. So instead of you're running your business, then the issue comes and then you adjust because of that. You're already putting in place sustainable efforts so that you are. It's essentially running within the organization. So over the next 5 years, you have it in place to meet these certain sustainable goals because you understand that 5 years from now, nobody in the automotive sector, nobody would want to drive a car, for example. So because of that, in your vision, making the world nobody's driving the car, because of that, you create a new vehicle where people can fly around the world or something like that. So that would be, and it's obviously no emissions and all that good stuff. So that would be kind of where we're going towards, which I thought was pretty interesting. Okay. Now, as we summarize, I want to thank everybody for, if you made it this far, I really appreciate it. Make sure to like, follow, subscribe, leave a comment on the video, share with people who you think would be interested in this. As always, if you want to follow us on other social platforms, we are on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Medium. And if you want to contact me, if you have any questions, feel free to. My email is jamie.white@suppliertnews.com. Thank you so much for your support and for listening. Here are a couple of the links. Once again, they will also be provided in the description below. But if you have any other links that you want us to take a look at, definitely let us know. With that being said, thank you so much for your time, and I hope everyone has a great day.